Sam, did you ever post? Did you ever upload the picture of the flyer?
No, you know what? I need to. It's in my computer though.
Oh darn it! So I'm just gonna have to go on a green screen. ¡Ah!
Ay, yo sé que está ocupadita.
Hola,
Hola,
buenas
buenas
tardes.
tardes.
Y Mariana, te quiero presentar a Michelle, que habla contigo. Sí, sí. Que te llamara para y está trabajando con un internista. Ah, sí. Está haciendo una pasantía con nosotros, estudiante en Figueroa. Es primera vez que tenemos una pasante o una entrevista que es una colaboración con el condado de Los Ángeles, de cultura de Los Ángeles. Nos dieron un gran para ella y nos ha ayudado durante las 3 semanas, nos ha ido tiene mucho conocimiento. Ay, conoce las tecnologías, como ella se mueve aquí. Nosotros ya somos una generación. No, ya vamos una generación que vamos de salida.
may have to speak into your mic.
Yeah. Do you want to use the mic?
Actually, you know what? I could actually do this right now. I'll do this and then. Oh, okay. Yeah. Alrighty. Okay. Okay. English, Spanish. All right. Good afternoon. Muy buenas tardes. Thank you so much for being here. You know, we're really excited that this is the first workshop for the Storytelling for Social Change series. First, we want to thank Esperanza Community Housing and Mercado La Paloma for providing this space for us to allow us to, get together and dream of a better place for our community. We also want to thank our funder, California for Humanities. They funded this project, so we're really grateful that, we're able to bring our ideas to fruition. And today, we have a really special guest. But before I introduce him, just, if you need to use the restrooms, so make sure you could go out through this door. If you need to leave, there's an exit back there. Before you leave, though, we do have a few surveys that we would like for you to fill out. This is just to let people know, how the workshop went and how we can improve the project. So now, I also want to thank everybody in this room for coming, for showing up on Saturday, everybody behind the scenes for making this production happen. And now I want to introduce Fidel Rodriguez. I think a lot of you guys know Fidel. I myself have been a fan of his work since I was a kid. Not to, make us look old or anything like that, but you look great. But you certainly influenced me as a youth, and I think it inspired the work that I do in the community. So I'm really grateful that we finally get to collaborate, that we're here. And Fidel actually used to be one of the first vendors out here at the Mercado La Paloma. And so it's really cool to, have you in this space. And I'm excited for everybody to, share their story. And, I'm excited for you guys to get to meet Fidel. Fidel has done, so much work around youth development. He's worked for the Human Relations Commission. On top of that, he's like a mentor. You're also doing work here in South LA. So that would be awesome if you could speak on that. But without further ado, let's welcome Fidel Rodriguez to the Mercado. Thank you.
Okay. So good afternoon, buenas tardes. I want to first, are you guys okay coming up here? Just so we can be a little bit more closer. Señora, quiero darte eso para usted. Medir, quiero darte eso también, ok? Gracias por todo. ¿Tengo permiso a hablar? Sí, gracias. Okay. So, my name is Fidel Rodriguez. I know this is part of a project that is about creating images and artwork and media to kind of tell the story of our neighborhood, of our comunidad. So I'm calling this Decolonize the Mind. Colonization is named after Christopher Columbus. Cristobal Colon was his last name. That's where we get colonized. So to decolonize the mind is to reconnect ourselves to Madre Tierra, Mother Earth, Pachamama, Onile. So decolonizing the mind to me is a lifelong journey of reconnecting to our history, our culture, our ancestors, and most importantly, to ourselves. Our narrative is our humanity. That's very significant. Our narrative, our stories. Healing ourselves in Mother Earth. Understanding consciousness, symbols, and the power of our stories to heal and reign and regain our humanity. So, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the symbols that are around our community. We're going to talk about the underlying messages behind those symbols. We're going to talk about the power for us to heal once we awaken, right? And we're going to talk about consciousness. A lot of work that I do with young people, young kids that are in gangs, kids that are running in the streets, incarcerated. People always ask, what is the work that I'm doing with them? And I tell them two things. I'm building relationships with them, and I'm raising their consciousness. That's it. I've been doing that for 25 years. It hasn't changed. So as you can see, there's a symbol to the right. It's a gas station on Vernon and Figueroa right here. We're going to talk about that later because, again, there's symbols all around us that are part of the trauma that all of us have gone through in one way, shape, or form. Again, my name is Fidel Rodriguez. I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a mentor. I work a lot in media. This is a picture of me in Africa. I've lived in Africa, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, working with youth, working with elders in different cultures. The reason that I do all this work that I'm doing, I'm going to be very brief with my story, is that I was lost as a kid. I first got arrested at 7 years old. I started drinking at 12. I was Mexicano and indigenous, and I knew nothing about who I was when I was a kid. I grew up around a lot of racism, and we grew up poor. And I kind of was in self-destruction. And at the age of 22, I almost went to prison. And by the grace of my ancestors and God, I was able to not go to prison. During that year of me not going to prison, somebody gave me a book called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. And Malcolm X was a freedom fighter in the United States. He was an African American who, alongside Martin Luther King, fought for civil rights and justice and against racism and neoliberalism and all the things that we're dealing with today. I was able to kind of see myself in him. And what ended up happening after that was I woke up. My consciousness was raised. I started understanding that I had a Mexican history. My dad was from Michoacan. My mom was Chicana in Chumash, which are the indigenous people of Santa Barbara. And I started to feel like I was human. I had grown up in a very racist town, feeling like I didn't exist. Hence, this was the messing around with alcohol and drugs and fighting and violence. But when I started to discover my history, I started to travel. I went to school in Cuernavaca. I went with the Zapatistas in Chiapas. I went to Africa. I started to connect with my cultural roots, but I also wanted to find out why the world was the way it was. And this began my healing journey to get to where I'm at. I could talk about this for hours, and today is about my narrative in some sense, but it's really about our narrative. So I'll start off with a quote. You already know enough. So do I. It is not knowledge we lack. What is missing is the courage to understand what we know and to draw conclusions. It's a quote from Sven Lindqvist called a book called Embrace not embrace, exterminate all the brutes. It's about the colonial genocide that happened in Africa. This is a quote from a shaman from the Warani in the Amazon. I want to share this because it's part of our healing journey. He says, "You are all distracted. We are all distracted. No one wonders why we breathe, what we're doing on this earth, and most importantly, how we can help each other." I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. Por favor. And I shared those quotes because on one side, we're talking about a destruction of Mother Earth that is happening right now before our eyes, and a disconnect from Mother Earth. Living in LA, living in South Central LA, I believe we feel it the most. It's a concrete jungle. It's like concrete over your skin. It's what we've done to this land. So one thing that I want to do, as the Warani elder said, we're all distracted. So what I want to do is a very simple breath exercise to get us back connected. If you can put your hands on your stomach and relax your shoulders and close your eyes and take a deep breath in and release. 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 And go ahead and let your arms drop down. In a very simple exercise, I want you to take your shoulders and I want you to roll them back like me. Muy despacio. Just rolling back, allowing your body to open up. And two more. Remember to breathe. And down. And doing the same thing, but now going forward. Remembering to breathe. And one last time. Go ahead and shake your hands out. Do you feel the blood moving in your body? How do you feel? ¿Bien?
Sí, relaja, relajada.
Relajado, ¿no?
Como que el aire entra en el cuerpo.
Eso. We are reconnecting to ourselves. Simple exercise. When you're stressed out, anybody in here been stressed out?
Yeah.
Anybody in here been depressed? Angry?
Yeah.
Frustrated? Have rage? How about resentment towards others? Right? All these different things. Whenever you're feeling any of those emotions, again, very simple. Go back to 7 breaths. By the time you get to the 7th breath, you'll be in a place of calmness where you can make a better decision. System, this whole capitalist system, this economic system that nobody wants to talk about, is the root cause of all the stress that I just talked about. All the therapists that are worldwide known, Dr. Gabor Mate, addiction specialist, childhood trauma specialist, says we are living under a toxic culture. It is the toxic culture that is causing the trauma in the adults, the grandparents, and they're passing it on to the kids by virtue of the system that we're living under. It's that simple. One way for us to reconnect to ourselves is getting back to our breath. And I'll leave with one last thing. If you have a backyard, a front yard, a park, you can always take your shoes off and your socks and put your feet in Mother Earth to ground you, to let her take your worries away. This is the connection that the elder is telling us. We are distracted. We're distracted from what Mother Earth is trying to tell us. Everybody wants to do land acknowledgements, and I say if you're going to do a land acknowledgement, you better acknowledge that Mother Earth is sick. And if you're going to acknowledge that I have trauma, the next step is to ask why. So I say that everybody's doing these land acknowledgements, but we have to start connecting to Mother Earth. You may sit. Thank you. Okay. So those that are going to participate in the program, I had a goal that I came up with that I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Paulo Freire. He was an educator in Brazil. And so I kind of changed it, but I thought it would be a good goal for those that are going to participate in this program to inspire individuals to create stories for social change that express their community's reality through symbols, which generate critical consciousness and empower them and the public to alter their relations with nature and social forces. To alter, right, relations with nature and social forces. Every time I take young people or even adults that have been traumatized and I take them into nature, they're like little kids. Todo se cambia. It all changes. Like they could be angry, depressed, whatever. And once I take them into nature, I take them to the beach, I take them to the mountains, they're reconnected. Because I create symbols to reconnect them. And then it talks about the relation with the social forces. What are the social forces? The social forces are the bills you pay every day, the gas you put in your car, right? The rent you pay, the mortgage you have, right? Your school tuition, or just worrying about getting a job. This is a system again, I'm naming it the toxic culture that we have to figure out how we're going to change it. And I might not do it, you might not do it, but the hope is that your generation is going to do it. We build on each other. That's what our communities have always been about. So, any questions before I continue? ¿Estás conmigo? You with me? Welcome. We've been waiting for you.
Okay, hi.
Okay, so I'm just going to go over these briefly. These are 4 words that we're going to talk about throughout this talk. Consciousness. For me, it's all about consciousness. An individual state of awareness of their environment, thoughts, feelings, or sensations. A quality or state of being aware of an external object or something within oneself. such as thoughts, feelings, memories, or sensations. The ability to experience or feel aware or engaged. A lot of times people walk around and they're in the zone. They're like a zombie, right? I feel that our consciousness is at such a state that we could go down the street and we can look at an elder, whether they be black, indigenous, white, Asian, sleeping on the floor with no blanket, with their shoes off, drooling out of their mouth, and act like nothing's going on. We're disconnected. All of us. We're all disconnected. And we have to figure out how to gain our humanity back. Symbols. What is a symbol? A symbol is a term, a name, or even a picture that may be familiar in daily life, yet that possesses specific connotations in addition to its conventional and obvious meaning. It implies something vague, unknown, or hidden from us. Symbols. We're going to talk about symbols today. Heal. Everybody talks about healing. Healing means to make well again, right? What trauma does, simple definition of trauma, it disconnects us from ourselves. It disconnects us from ourselves. Human. Human. To be human is to be engaged in relationship with others and with the world. It is to experience that world as an objective reality, independent of oneself, capable of being known. Human. Any questions, thoughts about any of these words?
También es como, él es una palabra clave ahí, la sensibilidad, la tradición, sensibilidad cultural.
Sí.
Un término un poquito cercano.
Sí, gracias.
El podernos meter dentro de esa persona y es como dicen muchos, meternos en los zapatos, ponernos los zapatos de la persona, dicen comúnmente,
sí.
¿verdad? Pero eso es como
muy en la catch.
Hacer algo muy introspectivo, ese sentimiento para tener sensibilidad, porque nos ha faltado mucho eso, por eso estamos tan divididos, tan deshumanizados, tan poco espirituales. Falta. Nuestros jóvenes así se están criando, solo están enfocados en la tecnología y en el materialismo. Y es lo que también hay que cambiar, que es parte del contexto de la decolonización.
¿Cómo no? Sí. Gracias por eso.
Pero yo siempre me pregunto, ¿cómo se hacen esos cambios? Porque el peso de la realidad es tan abrumante y tan fuerte. Aún dentro de nosotros mismos, gente que se considera progresista, que trabaja en organizaciones, que hacen trabajo social, y muchas veces nosotros también nos desconectamos precisamente de nuestra propia conciencia y nuestra humanidad, porque estamos respondiendo a demandas constantes de hay que aplicar por esto, hay que reportar aquí, hay que hacer allá, pero estamos también desconectados. Entonces, ¿cómo sobreponernos a esa brutal realidad de la realidad?
Te voy a responder en inglés.
Sí.
Okay? She was talking about our sensitivity, our sensibility to being able, almost like being empathetic, and we're disconnected, right? And technology is kind of affecting our young people as well, right? And then how do we with everything going on, how do we actually do any of these things when we're constantly responding to things, right? And I'm going to say we're reacting to things. Responding would be a more proactive way of doing things, right? But how I'm going to answer this is that we do it by doing it ourselves. We become that. I don't have to worry about educating these young people or anybody in this. I become it, and I exhibit that. So when something is happening, I'm not responding. I'm sitting in non-duality. I'm not living in the future, and I'm not living in the past in my mind. I'm presently here, hearing you. This is the place where our ancestors lived. I don't just deal with this dimension. I'm dealing with other dimensions now. But that's the consciousness that the Mayans talked about was coming. The sixth sun is changing us right now. And how do we change that? We change that by changing ourselves. We become that place where people are like, I just did something wrong. How come you're not reacting? I said, because it's not my journey. This is your journey. It's much different. When we're traumatized, we react. We're stressed. We want to control everything. We don't control anything. We can't even control our mind. Our mind is racing. Are you here listening to me, or are you thinking about something else right now? Where is your mind? Right? So how do we do that? We do that by knowing ourselves. How do we know ourselves? We have to go down that journey. We have to talk to the elders. The elders have everything. I'm giving you the key. If you have your grandparents around, talk to them. If they harmed you, let it go. Let it go. If you want to live in resentment and all this stuff, go ahead. You're going to get sick. It's what happens. We already know that. But nobody wants to do the work. Nobody wants to do the work. Healing takes work and time. But I can tell you, as somebody who was sexually abused as a kid, physically abused, right? Abandonment issues, I healed. And I'm in a place in amor. El amor sana. That's all there is. That's the end of the presentation, but that's what it is. And I know it sounds so simplistic, but it's not. It's who we are. It's who you and you were when you were born. It's who she was when she was born. The essence of who we are is amor. When we're traumatized, we lose it and we react. And then that first 7 years of your life becomes a pattern of behavior in your life. So to decolonize is to get back to the essence of amor. And then we become that change you're talking about. And you don't have to worry about your coworkers or the people that work here or the restaurants or your family. You become that. And what happens is your vibration changes. Your consciousness changes. And you begin emitting love, which no matter what religion you want to become, this is what our ancestors talked about. They were connected to the earth. We're disconnected, but we're going to get reconnected. That's why we chose to be here today. ¿Está bien? Okay. Gracias a usted. Okay. Any more questions? You good? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Icebreaker, very simple. If we can go around the room, very simple. Your name, share somebody you admire. What was one thing that you overcame this past year? And lastly, why are you participating in this storytelling project? And anybody could start.
Whoever wants to start, if you guys could just speak loudly. Si pueden hablar con voz alta para que el micrófono capture el audio. Just speak loudly. Thank you.
And Angela, will you, if anybody speaks Spanish, will you translate?
Yes.
¿Alguien? ¿Alguien?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Guadalupe Gonzalez. Somebody I admire is Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
And then the past year, I worked so hard for the community, and I saw blessing to my family is help. And then I participate in this storytelling project because I I want to know more, and then I want to share my story.
Gracias. Gracias. You want next? Yeah.
So my name is Michelle. Someone that admires my mother.
Mm.
Something that I overcame this past year was the sudden loss of my grandparents.
Mm.
Um, I'm participating in this storytelling project because I want to become more familiarized with spirituality
Mm.
and touch and connect with my roots.
Mm. Sure. ¿Quieres ir o no?
Voy a quitarme la mascarilla.
Está bien.
Bueno, mi sobrenombre con que mucha gente me conoció, porque trabajo con Clínica Romero,
Mm.
Mariana Francisco, ¿verdad? Pero una vez me hice ciudadana, traje mi nombre verdadero, con que me bautizaron, con que el pueblo me conoce, mi familia me conoce desde que nací. Mi verdadero nombre es Nesha, que
Nesha.
quiere decir pequeña y grande,
Mm.
porque cuando nací era chiquita. Pero la energía del día en que yo nací era bastante grande, pero grande en el sentido de, no estoy hablando, comparándome con Dios, no, sí, grande en el sentido de que tenía un corazón grande para dar. Entonces, por eso quiere decir Nesha, pequeña y grande.
Nesha.
¿Puedes
Nesha.
traducir un poquito para que las personas que están escuchando también en el internet y aquí que no comprenden el español y luego puedes seguir, ¿ok?
Sí.
Hello, my name is Mariana Francisco. That's my given name here in the United States. But when I became a U.S. citizen, I reclaimed my real name, Nesha, which means ¿qué quiere decir de nuevo?
Significa pequeña y grande.
Pequeña y grande, small and large. And because the day I was born, it was a big day, a grand day. And I don't want to compare myself to God's greatness, but it was just a lot of heart.
Era un corazón grande para servir.
Sí.
A big heart to serve.
Y es cierto, porque desde chiquita me gustaba servir y ayudar.
Mm.
Alguien que yo admiro en mi vida y que no tuve la dicha de estar con ella ni convivir con ella, fue mi madre.
Somebody that I admire in my life and that I didn't have the joy to be with her in my life is my mother.
Y, dice, en la tercera pregunta dice, ¿qué dice? ¿Qué quiere
¿Por qué
decir?
está participando? Oh,
No,
era
otro.
un reto que usted sobresalió este año.
¿Un reto de sobresalir? ¿O dificultad también?
Sí.
Bueno, yo creo que uno de los grandes retos que yo tuve es mi salud.
Mm.
Ustedes saben que cuando uno se entrega con la comunidad es como que uno se casara con la comunidad. Es la verdad, todos ustedes no me dejarán mentir. Uno se casa con la comunidad y uno primero deja que todos agarren y de último va uno, y es así a veces uno con su salud. Uno a veces se olvida por estar tan compenetrado en querer ayudar. Y mi salud este año pues mejoró que otros años, porque fue un gran reto para mí regular mi azúcar como ya debe ser y ya tenerlo controlado en una cosa. Y una gran dicha pues, de haber logrado eso. Una de las grandes dificultades es que pues a veces vi venir la muerte a través de mi hermano que acabo de perder. Lo vi llegar, también lo vi irse, pero puedo decir una muerte corporal porque realmente los seres que estamos sobre la madre tierra pues no vamos a morir nunca, ¿verdad? Sabemos que somos una energía y y somos una energía muy asemejada al gran espíritu, corazón del cielo, corazón de la tierra. Pues no vamos a morir nunca y sabemos que la vida continúa para perfeccionar, pero en ese momento que pasó fue muy doloroso para mí y estoy también en esa lucha, ¿verdad? Pero es lo que puedo contar. Y
So one of the challenges that I overcame this year is that, as everyone knows, when we work with community, we kind of marry the community and we give everything of ourselves for the community, and we don't take care of our own health. And that was the case with me. So one of the big challenges for me was to regulate my sugar levels, so that I could be healthy and get it right. And then one of the biggest challenges that I also faced is that I saw, came to face with death through the passing of my own brother, my dear brother, who I saw come and live his life and then leave. And it's something that is a big challenge that I'm still dealing with now, but that's the way the universe works. But it's still something that's challenging.
Yo creo que alguien debe quedar en la historia y hacer lo que imitarnos o aprender, y que no solo hay personas de Europa, de otra parte del mundo que tienen corazón también, solo corazón, también nosotros tenemos corazón. En nuestra propia casa están estas personas que tal vez los jóvenes no lo reconocen, no lo ven, están tan ciegos, pero nosotros somos parte de ellos, de los que están creciendo ahorita, y vamos a seguir siendo parte de ejemplo de los que vendrán. Creo que esa es la parte más importante, que siempre dejar presente. Y no es que queramos ser famosos tampoco, ¿verdad? Son un ejemplo de humildad y de dar y de luchar, porque si ahora tenemos derechos, es porque en el pasado también las personas pelearon por nuestros derechos. Y nosotros tenemos una gran responsabilidad de mantenerlos y no perderlos. A ellos les toca hacer lo mismo. Somos como un trampolín para generaciones tras generaciones con nuestro ejemplo y con nuestra lucha.
Somebody needs to tell our story. We have to prove or show or demonstrate that our story is just as important. And not just look at the Anglo stories or white people's stories, but somebody needs to tell our story. And maybe the younger generation could be part of telling those stories if we pass it down. Also, sí. La última parte solamente.
Sí, somos como un ejemplo y que vamos sacando cosas muy buenas como una escalera poco a poco. Pero esa imagen es la que deben tener los muchachos cuando comiencen a hacer el activismo, el liderazgo, la lucha.
We need to tell that story and protect that image. And other people also before us had to fight for the rights that we have now, so we can't lose those rights. And we need to continue fighting.
Y si queremos un mundo mejor, todos nos tenemos que tirar en el trampolín de la lucha. Porque yo siempre he dicho, si nunca nos tiramos, nunca vamos a conseguir el cambio. Y quiero hablar de una revolución, no de agarrar armas, no estoy hablando. Yo creo que ahorita es un momento de hacer una revolución, decolonizando nuestra mente y quitar el término que yo soy pobre todo el tiempo, porque que me disculpen nuestras hermanas iglesias, porque también casas y cosas pueden hacer con la espiritualidad, mantener el orden, pero no podemos decir pobrecito yo todo el tiempo. No podemos quedarnos diciendo no se puede. Ahorita tenemos un gran reto en la inmigración. Bando si no conseguimos los papeles este año. Pero quien tiene que hacer la fuerza, vamos a hacer nosotros, vamos a empujar. Pero detrás de nosotros hay cientos de personas que este año es crucial. O ganamos los papeles para todos o vamos a perder 10 años más, 8 años más. Los que no han agarrado papeles por 30 25 años. Hay un reto para nosotros ahora. Pero la cuestión es perder el miedo y darnos a.
So the battle's going to be won if everybody jumps into the trampoline of change, of revolution. And until everybody does that, this year we have to fight. We have to fight for the rights, for immigration rights. And this is a year that we need to battle for that. But we are only going to win that if everybody joins in, because behind us we have hundreds of thousands of people depending on that. But we all need to unite together and jump on that trampoline.
Eso quiero agregar algo más, porque yo veo tan injusto, tan inhumano de este sistema. La mayoría de la gente que ha trabajado 30, 40 años sin papeles han vivido ocultos. Con su sudor y su sangre han construido este gran país tan poderoso. ¿Y cómo es posible que todavía los tengamos en la oscuridad y no les queramos dar papeles?
There is an injustice in this system that we have people that have worked without proper documents for 30 to 40 years under darkness, hidden away, not being recognized. And how is it possible that they're still living in those conditions now? So that's an injustice that we need to fight against.
Gracias. Gracias. Yadira, ¿quieres ir?
Oh, yes, okay. Well, my name is Yadira Arevalo. There are many people that I admire and have admired throughout my life, and that I have met, and that I have been great examples, and some of them very dear to me. But I'm just going to bring the memory and the spirit of two people that are close to this project of Mercado La Paloma and to the community. One is Sister Diane Donahue. She was the founder of Esperanza Community Housing back in 1989. And she was a nun, and she built Esperanza by building affordable housing for low-income families. And I admired her energy, her stamina, her resilience, her force to get close to a community that, she was working in this neighborhood as a community organizer, but she was not part of that community. She's just an American lady, very white from Minnesota. And she took that challenge and she became one of the community, one of us. And I had always admired her because I came to work with her back in the mid-1990s. And I cherish her legacy, and I'm very thankful for what she did and the legacy that has allowed us to continue doing more projects with the community, including Mercado La Paloma. So she is someone that I admire that is very close to this project. I admire my sister Mariana Francisco. I know Mariana since the 90s too, and being half Guatemalan, I know what it means to survive, what it means to be a Mayan in Guatemala, which is a very oppressive country for the majority of its population. And I admire her as a Mayan woman to have survived centuries of oppression and domination, and still she is here fighting, keeping her language, her traditions, and moving forward with all of us. I have great respect and admiration for you, Mariana. And I wanted to tell you that always. We got Polly, which is one leader from the Mayan community this year, and that has been something that I'm still trying to overcome. Not only the loss of Polly, who was a great Mayan leader, but so many people we've lost that are very dear and close to our project here, Mercado de Esperanza, incluyendo Evita, Guardado, Sofía, Don David, and some people from our buildings. And I was fearful because we were losing a lot of people in the community, and I didn't know, and we're still losing people. There are many people in other countries that have died because of the pandemic, very valuable people, leaders in those countries. And I'm still fearful that we will be losing more of those people, but I'm trying to stay positive and engage and and protective, protective of the family and the community. Why am I participating in this storytelling project? Because I have had this idea for many, many years that we need to start documenting the stories of our people in the United States. That there are histories, años, the immigration in this country. And when I came here, like back in the 90s, I didn't see many stories of Latinos and especially immigrant Latinos. And I remember wanting to tell this story when I was working at the Via Esperanza Community Center of the ladies who sold tamales across the street from the community center that I was working with. And the lady that vendía jugos en la mera esquina, dijo, ¿quién va a decir la historia de estas personas? Who's going to tell the story of these people that came with nothing, maybe fleeing persecution and poverty, but no one is documenting their stories. And these people are valuable too, and their stories matter. And we have to tell it. So I have always had the idea that we need to chronicle, and then we need to record these stories. And finally, like this year, it's becoming a reality with through Esperanza. We have a project, a big project that is to create community multimedia archive where we can record people in the community via video, audio, and written testimonies, and that we will place them in a platform that will stay there forever for the new generations. Because we will pass, but our stories have to stay with our people. So that's the reason I'm here. Thank you.
Gracias.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alejandro Flores Gomez, full name. And someone that I admire, but it sounds cliche, but it has to be my parents because they both work. They both work very hard. My dad, he works damn near 12 hours a day, just like live a happy life. I'm very grateful to him, and like so he shows me that like through hard work and it can pay off. And my mom, well, she may not have a job. She does everything around the house, and she showed me that she is a strong woman. And through her, I learned like many life lessons of how to be strong, how to overcome adversities in my life. So those are two people I strongly admire. And something that I overcame this past year, while being in quarantine, I started gaining self-doubt and lack of motivation in myself. I don't know, somewhere down the line last year, I didn't feel like doing anything, and I feel like I couldn't do anything, and I was starting to doubt myself. I feel like I couldn't be a good human being, and I just started like attacking myself all the time, and I kind of had like I gave myself depression in terms of like I just flooded my mind with negativities, which was like I didn't need to do that, but eventually this year I started getting the motivation back. I started like trusting myself more, and started to become a better human being overall because I kind of got rid of that doubt, all that bad stuff that was in my head. So then now I'm going through positive ways of like coping with it. Like not becoming here is actually good. The way of just getting rid of all that, start exercising again, starting to go to the gym again, which is good. And yeah, something I had to overcome. Like get rid of self doubt and like lack of motivation last year. And the reason I'm participating in this storytelling project just to become more knowledgeable and become more enlightened, because the more knowledge someone has, the more like power you possess in the mind, the more better you feel as a person, and overall just have like be more connected overall, and like being more connected and stuff. You just be a better human. So that's part of me right on here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
My name is Joshua Halala. Someone I admire the most is my grandmother, not only for being a mother to me, but as well for like the struggles she overcame throughout her life. not only for herself, but also for the next generations to come, and for me to be where I am today. And one thing I came this past year was actually the topic of resentment that you brought up earlier was there's petty fights that we have with loved ones, friends, and also larger fights. And this year, being so distant from people that we realize we truly love, and after surviving a year and some of them didn't make it, then after that kind of opens your mind to realize that some of these things don't really matter as much, and kind of to move forward and bring peace. And the reason I'm participating today is kind of to have more of an open mind, where you had mentioned earlier that the toxic society that we live in, focusing on bills, mortgage, stuff like that, and realizing that there's a bigger picture to our lives, and it's not just focused around pleasing others and bills, money wise, and all that, but there's more to us in the story.
Thank you.
So, is the mask required? Vaccinated? My name is Julissa. Soy Julissa. Like other people have said, I admire a lot of people. I just admire people who become the change. Like I think you said this, who become the change that they want to see in the world. You know, we go around the world questioning, like, you know, there's so much terrible things happening. Why just all these bad things that happen? But yeah, once you just become self-aware of who you are and that you can only control yourself and your reaction to other people or to other events, it just makes you just sort of live a more peaceful life, I think. So just people who are able to do that. I didn't catch your name. What was your name? Alejandro. Thank you for sharing what you said. I think I've been able to relate to something that everybody has said. I care about the issues that you all have brought up. But that's just what I like to do, connecting with people. Something that I overcame, thankfully, I have not had anything tragic happen in my life, but just so I'm very grateful and very blessed for the life that I have. But just like with anybody else, we struggle with like our own self-doubts, our own limiting beliefs. Something that this whole thing I've been ruminating in my thoughts, but I'm aware of that, you know, and it's like, no, I'm great, I'm great. Why am I participating in this? I mean, I heard about it through Sandy. Thank you for inviting me. And I think you mentioned you want to learn more about consciousness and spirituality. So this came about and it's great. I'm reading a book called, I'm sure you know it and other people know it too, called The Four Agreements. So it's a beautiful book. So I love learning about that, about psychology, sociology. So great event.
Thank you. And la última.
Mi nombre es Leticia Ortiz y a quien yo admiro son a mis padres, porque han sabido sacarnos adelante a 7 y porque nos han sabido llevar y nos han dado valores, nos han enseñado todo lo que es valores, pues todo lo bueno, nos han llevado por el buen camino, el respeto, y luego, ¿cuál es la segunda? Ya, eso es, ya lo dije.
El año pasado.
Pues lo difícil del año pasado fue salir con bien y con vida, porque estamos aquí en COVID. Porque aunque yo no paré de trabajar, eso fue un reto muy grande de estarme cuidando y gracias a Dios que estamos aquí, podemos estar aquí contando. Ese fue un gran reto porque mucha gente que conocemos ya no pasó, desgraciadamente. Y porque estoy aquí, porque siempre me gusta aprender y quiero conocer más de la espiritualidad ha gustado lo que ha dicho ah, y quiero seguir aprendiendo más de eso. Y luego otra cosa de lo que estaban hablando, de que si se está perdiendo son los valores. El respeto sería una buena manera de cómo seguir llevando esos a las comunidades, a los jóvenes, porque es donde yo miro y veo que es donde ya no hay, se está terminando los principios que le inculcaron a uno, y a mí me gustaría seguir aprendiendo de todo lo que estamos seguir más aprendiendo de la espiritualidad. Gracias.
Gracias.
He says just saying that the people she values most are her parents for being able to raise 7 children and instill values and always bringing them up and sacrificing things for them. And something that she overcame last year is that she actually, as a frontline worker, never stopped working. So really fighting hard to stay healthy because so many people that we know didn't make it through, and so she that was a hurdle for her to try and stay healthy and working hard to stay healthy. And then the last thing of why she's here is that she just always likes to learn. She's very interested in this topic of spirituality, but she always wants to be like a learner and is interested in learning more about that. And the last thing was that she feels that values are something that our society is moving away from, and it's something that we're losing. So that's why she's interested in learning about spirituality.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Gracias todo for sharing your hearts. Look around. Look around at everyone. Right? Sharing our stories is how we gain our humanity. And the fact that we have all these generations, right? We're just missing the jovens, the kids. But this is how we do it. It's simple. We gather, we share, we look at each other in the eyes, we acknowledge each other. Beautiful words. Thank you again. So let's so does anyone want to take a break? You want me to just run into it? Keep going? Okay, vamos a ver. Okay, so PTSD. We all know about PTSD, right? Trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, etc. So studies by Gillespie and colleagues in 2009 show that at least 90% of urban low-income residents exposed to community trauma develop PTSD by 40%. In 2015, there was a USC study that said up to 37% of all the youth around USC had PTSD, a higher rate than the soldiers that were coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. Just to contextualize, we're going to talk about stories in South Central, right? So we're living in a community of trauma. So we got to label it if we're going to try to heal it, right? If anybody needs references on this, I can email it to people later. And at USC in the Village, an economic impact. This was retrieved from an archive. The study said, if you live in a community with parks and playgrounds, grocery stores selling nutritious foods, access to good jobs, and to other economic opportunities, clean air, safe streets, good schools, ample health care and social services, and neighbors who look after one another, you are more likely to thrive, to succeed, right? To thrive. If you live in a neighborhood without these essentials, you are more likely to suffer from obesity, asthma, diabetes, heart disease, or other chronic ailments. You are also more likely to die of a stroke, a heart attack, or certain forms of cancer. You are more likely to be injured or killed during a crime, in a car crash, or simply crossing the street. So essentially, they would say living in the hood could be detrimental to your life, right? Now, I wanted to point this out just for one simple thing. Now, I've been able to travel all throughout LA. I'm in everywhere. I'm in East LA, I'm in Malibu, I'm in Palos Verdes, I'm in Pomona, Pacoima. I see how people live, right? The one thing that even if we live in a nice area or in a poor area that we can do is we can change how we see the world. Think about that, right? You may not be able to change the outside world, but you can change how you see it. Okay? Fight and flight response comes from trauma. What happens is that when you're in an experience with a relationship with someone, you're reacting to past thoughts in your mind. Again, 95% of your thoughts, 5% present moment. Okay? So I say that because reading that second part, it sounds bad, right? It sounds horrible. However, we know wellness, I'll say cultural wellness. That means being connected to your ancestral traditions, how our ancestors farmed, how they breathed, how they prayed, how they saw each other. If we were to say in la quech, tú eres el otro yo, we are a reflection of each other. That's how they lived their lives. It's a different way of thinking, but we can live in that now. Regardless if we live in the bottom part of that story or the top. The values are the same. Treat yourself, live yourself with dignity, dignidad. It's that simple. Respect. You at a young age, if you can learn how to let go of resentment, my brother, whoo, you got such a big start, way ahead of me or probably any of us. Once you learn how to let go, you free yourself. You free yourself to be able to move forward. So I shared both these sites, these perspectives, because we're going to talk about South Central LA and the stories out there, right? Those narratives, our narratives, is our dignity. Didi Delgado said that. She is an African American from the Black Lives Matter movement. And I heard her say that. And I was like, wow. They took away our stories. They omitted them from the books. They erased our ancestors' stories so we wouldn't know who we are, so we would self-destruct. Now you're reading the Four Agreements now. Ancient Toltec wisdom that connected us to ourselves. Our narratives are important. Those narratives that you're going to go out into the street and collect are significant to changing the reality of this toxic culture. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a story. To me, a very powerful story. I want you to listen to what she does and goes back to in her journey of living, okay? It's a woman named Maria. I want to make sure, let me turn it up a little bit.
Cuando estás en México, escuchas que Estados Unidos es el país de las oportunidades. Pero cuando yo llegué a este país y trabajaba en el sol, en el aire, en la lluvia, en el calor, yo pensaba que sí era un país de las oportunidades donde estaba la mía. Mi nombre es María Inés Catalán Rebolledo. Soy un pequeño de Decolonizing, California. Emigré a California hace más de 30 años, siendo madre soltera con 4 hijos, y llegué a trabajar a los campos. Yo me preguntaba qué tipo de agricultura era agricultura orgánica. Me di cuenta que era la misma agricultura que mis antepasados, mis abuelos, mis padres habían estado haciendo en México. Yo pensé que si algún día yo llegaba a tener nietos, yo quería que mis nietos tuvieran mucha comida y fueran libres, como yo fui libre corriendo en los campos con mis abuelos. Empecé a trabajar y a soñar y a prepararme para ser un pequeño agricultor orgánico. Tuve que aprender a manejar tractores, equipo pesado como mujer. Tuve muchos retos, muchas barreras, porque estaba entrando en una área que era solo para hombres que hablaban inglés y personas que tenían dinero para invertir en la agricultura, para pagar la renta del acre que me dieron el primer año. Yo lo pagué lavando los baños de la oficina, limpiando las oficinas de Rural Development. Yo empecé mi negocio sin un centavo, ni un penny tenía dinero para invertir en mi negocio. Culturalmente, la mujer nunca fue cabeza o líder de un negocio en la agricultura. Es muy difícil que te acepten también en los negocios, jamás. Lo logré, ahora tengo mis nietos que todos han crecido, gateado y caminado en el lodo, en la tierra, tienen mucha comida. He logrado el sueño que tuve de que mis nietos fueran libres y mis hijos fueron libres.
¿Cómo sienten? How do you feel?
Siento mucha admiración. Catalano es el apellido de ella. Qué admiración siento por ella. Qué admiración. Que una mujer con 4 hijos, madre soltera, inmigrante, probablemente llegada sin papeles, haya logrado lo que está haciendo, que se haya conectado a la tierra otra vez y a la actividad que hacían sus antepasados. Que ella la esté dejando como un legado para sus hijos y sus nietos. Me parece una historia muy bonita. Gracias. Sí.
¿Algo más?
También veces nos meten a la idea de que a veces por ser una mujer o por ser uno de otro género no puede uno lograr lo que uno quiere. Pero ahí está demostrando que ella que no podía ser líder, ella logró y luchó hasta que no se hizo. Sí. Pudo hacerlo, todo se puede si uno se propone y nomás es ponerse metas para poder lograr lo que uno quiere. Sí.
Gracias. ¿Alguien más?
No.
How did it make you feel?
I was watching her story and it reminded me a lot about a lot of the women that are in my life. So like my mother, my grandmother, they also, like, for example, my mom, she did it here with nothing. She was a single mother. She was my mom and my dad for a long period of time. And, she was able to overcome a lot of obstacles. And because of her, I'm where I'm at today. So seeing her story just, reminded me of her a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
We identify a lot with those type of stories because those are our stories too. I mean, my mom was a single mom too. I am a single mom too, so there's a lot of connections.
Sí, sí.
El ejemplo de ella me trajo a mi mamá, pero 2 valores muy grandes que tuvo esta mujer es que venció el miedo. Aunque ustedes no lo crean, yo creo de tantos traumas que ha tenido nuestra comunidad en diferentes lados y el trauma de cruzar una frontera, ese miedo que acarreamos desde nuestros países, desde ser perseguidos, ser invadidos, pero esta mujer perdió el miedo. Para mí creo que la clave es perder el miedo de verdad. Hay un miedo adentro siempre y ese esa mujer lo demostró ahí, que venció, una mujer valiente.
Claro, claro.
Muy valiente.
¿Alguien más?
Yeah, she has a determination to go through the goals, all the dreams she has.
These are the stories you have to go find in South Central LA. I'm not calling it South LA. It's called South Central LA. For those of us that are older, we know, right? South LA became the name to be gentrified. That's why they're gentrifying. But go and find those stories. They're out there, right? And I want to mention, you're reading the 4 Agreements. Read his first book called Beyond Fear. 4 Agreements, Mastery of Love, watered down version for America. Beyond Fear is his first book. Goes deep, beautiful. Like spirituality, he takes you off into the ether. Okay. Those who listen to nature learn to see in darkness. Only then can they see in darkness and find the path to the light. That's from a cartoon from Mexico called Chico's Journey. If you have Netflix, it's a nice little cartoon. But I use that because nature, right? Nature is how we get reconnected. So if you're going to work in the city, find your way somewhere, whether it's the beach, whether it's the mountains. I put Angeles Forest right there. 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, I can take you through the 110 to the 5 to the 2, and I'll be up in Angeles Forest. Have you thinking that you're in a completely different country. And that's where I spend most of my time. I'm always in the mountains. I do my work in the city and I'm out. I reconnect with my ancestors. I reconnect with Madre Tierra because she's healing me. She gives me the insight. You want spirituality? Connect to Mother Earth. She will give that to you. I'm sorry, I'm going too fast. That mean? Okay. All right. So, we're not going to do that because we're running. Symbols. Again, back to symbols. And I'm saying this because they're part of the story, right? A symbol is a term, a name, or even a picture that may be familiar in daily life, yet it possesses specific connotations in addition to its conventional and obvious meaning. Okay? I'm going to share with you a little story of my own. Okay? ¿Qué dice eso? Indio muerto. En inglés, dead Indian. Te voy a enseñar algo. Estuvo en la comunidad donde yo nací, where I grew up.
¿Dónde?
Santa Bárbara. Santa Barbara.
Por los Indio muerto. ¿Ese era un barrio o una calle?
Un calle.
Una calle.
Un calle.
Wow.
¿Qué piensas?
Qué terrible, Dios mío.
Que viene de los Cucuzlanes.
¿Mande?
Que yo no entraría ahí.
No, o sea, me parece me parece una ofensa terrible. Que le pongan así a una calle. Porque ¿quiénes mataron a los indígenas en este país? ¿Y quiénes los siguen?
Los españoles, los americanos.
Exacto. Entonces, es que ponerle así me parece algo terrible.
Por 100 años. 100 años estaba ahí. ¿Ok? Sí. Te voy a hablar esta historia muy rápido. ¿Mande?
Ahora, ¿cómo se llama ahí?
Te voy a decir. Okay. If indigenous cultural history was not that important, they would never have taken them out of the history books. And we can say our history, Black history, Chinese, if it wasn't that important, they would have never taken it out of the books. Okay? They take our indigenous history out. I mean, I don't know, do I pass for white? No? Okay, so I grew up as a kid riding my bike en mi bicicleta, en el calle Indio Muerto. Con sangre indio, pero no sabía, right? Because of my consciousness and not knowing my history, right? This is a summary of what happened. Symbols, right? Símbolos. There's a hidden message behind this, right? Indigenous people in the United States and Latin America were killed in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. Here were some of the ways they were murdered. They had been hacked apart with axes and swords, scalped for bounty, trampled under horses, hanged on meat hooks, hunted as game, fed to dogs, burned alive, thrown over the sides of ships at sea, whirled to death, raped, starved to death during many forced marches, and deliberately infected with diseases. That's the underlining message behind this. You don't matter. Your ancestors don't matter. Your culture doesn't matter, right? Mexicanos have indigenous blood, right? Latinos have indigenous blood. My ancestors were Indians. My ancestors were also Spanish, but I have to have dignity for all of them. So, let's see what I have there. Okay. So, you asked if it changed. See, 20 years. 20 years. I was at USC in 1997. I graduated. I did my thesis on this and Spanish culture. They celebrate genocide in Santa Barbara. It's horrible. But for 20 years, since 97, 98, I've been working with my Chumash elders, wanting so bad to change this. And he would always tell me, patience. Be patient. It'll happen. So during the Black Lives Matter movement in March, right, when COVID was hitting, city council people were calling Santa Barbara. Why is this sign still there? Why is this sign still there? So my elder called me and I was able to put a presentation together. 5 minutes, right? They give us 5 minutes, but I hit them hard. I hit them with the knowledge of my ancestors. I hit them with the knowledge of my mother and my father and all the things in all of us. And they voted unanimously to change it. It is now called Hutash, Madre Tierra. Hutash. So I share that because things do change. We just have to be patient, que no? Paciencia. Be patient. And these are the same things that exist in South Central. In fact, they exist all over LA. So symbols, we're decoding symbols. So mira, Shell Oil, right? This is on Vernon and Figueroa Street. We all go by it, not just them, Chevron, Mobil, etc., right? So we're going to decode this. Shell Oil. Here's the story. Near Quito, Ecuador, there's a city called the City of Shell, named after Shell Oil. This is a frontier outpost and military base hacked out of Ecuador's Amazon jungle to serve the oil company whose name it bears. A steaming city. It is inhabited mostly by soldiers, oil workers, and the indigenous people from the Shuar and Quechua tribes who work for them as prostitutes and laborers. Indigenous tribes have been determined to prevent Shell and other oil companies from destroying their homes, families, and lands, even if they must die in the process. For them, this is a war about the survival of their children and cultures. While for us, it is about power, money, and natural resources. It is one part of the struggle for world domination and the dream of a few greedy men. Global empire. This is from a man named John Perkins, who was what is called an economic hitman. They go into countries all over the world. They find resources, whether they're indigenous, African, Polynesian, what have you. They do deals with the rich families of the country. They say, we're going to bring an airport. We're going to bring a hospital. We're going to develop your area. And they set places up like this. If the people in politics don't agree, we send in the CIA. And the CIA takes out people. And if that doesn't work, we go to war. I'm giving you the context of how American imperialism works. I'm not giving you the past, it's happening right now. Okay? All that's taken from a symbol on Vernon and Figueroa. Right down the street. There's symbols everywhere. There's symbols when you pull out your dollar bill, your $20 bill. There's symbols. But we have to learn to decode them. Because if we don't have the background knowledge, right? So now let's look at aceite, right? Oil. Let's look at oil. What is oil? I'm going to give you an indigenous perspective. Okay? Oil is a substance the Uwa tribe in Colombia, they believe to be the sacred blood of Mother Earth on their sacred ancestral territory. La sangre, ¿no? De Madre Tierra. Más piense eso. The blood of Mother Earth. Okay? In the 90s, Occidental Petroleum, a company owned by Al Gore's family, as he was putting out the inconvenient truth and being seen as the environmental, vice president and wanted to save the planet. Yet his company was going to mine oil on the Uwas territory. And the Uwas said, 5,000 of them, we will commit suicide if you come and take this, because that's exactly what you will be doing. I share this story with you because something has to change. Think about it. If they see the oil as the blood of Mother Earth, and we want to heal ourselves, can we heal ourselves without healing Mother Earth? We're part of her. And all of our ancestral traditions talks about this. We're not separate from the birds, the wings, the winged, the four-legged, the plants, the ocean, the river. Somos juntos. We have to wake our consciousness up in order for all of us to begin to change it. We are part of the change. That's why we're here. Awaken your consciousness. Now you're going to start seeing symbols everywhere and wonder what the hell is going on. I could take that Gatorade and start breaking a whole bunch of stuff out, brother. You would not want to put that in your body after. But we don't know. Apple. I'm not a Christian, but that's a forbidden fruit. Taking the bite of the apple. Adam and Eve. It's right in front of you. You know the Adam and Eve story? She ate the apple. It's right there. Yes. Don't even let me. I'm sorry. You get me all excited now. I'm sorry. I'm like, you know what I mean? Don't let me start talking about the technology. That's another story. We're not going to talk about that right now. We're sticking to our stories. That's our private meeting without the cameras. Okay. Panchebe. The search for the root of truth. That is a philosophy I have learned, and it has guided me, and it will guide me until I become an ancestor. There are signs and symbols all around us. This was taken off of the LA Grit Media Instagram because I said, what a great connection. Active site, active oil drilling site right in South Central LA right now. Why do people around oil refineries get more cancer? When you next time you put gasoline in your car, look at the warnings that are right there as you're pumping gas. The chemicals found in this product have been known to the state of California to cause cancer. What is this made out of? Where does this come from? ¿Dónde? Plástico. ¿Dónde viene? ¿De qué? Oil. So when you're refining oil, crude oil, the blood of Mother Earth, you run it through the refinery, you have excess toxins. Those of us that remember Tupperware parties, right? When I was a kid, Tupperware parties, they got all our moms, everybody, all the gente were like, oh, we're going to have a Tupperware party. They were getting rid of the other toxins. And they sell it back to us. I mean, it's pretty bad. They got us under a spell. That's colonialism. They have us under a spell. And the more information we get, then we let it absorb into our consciousness. Okay, thoughts.
I just wanted to, I guess, put it out there that when we talk about reconnecting to Mother Earth and honoring Mother Earth, and that we are part of Mother Earth, we can not only do that through our actions, like the companies we choose to support, right? Mm-hmm. But also what we eat. And I think a lot of people are too afraid to think about. I hate to go back. Well, they're too afraid to think about what is the impact of me eating animals, right? Not only on the environment, but on myself. Because in animals, we can choose to believe that it's a living being, or we can totally say, no, it's not, because we don't want to think about the pain we're inflicting on that cow, or the pig, or the chicken. So I think that's also, that gets lost in the conversation when we're talking about our connection to Mother Earth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sí, señora.
Esta es una parte de nuestras luchas como gente indígena en toda Latinoamérica, vamos a decir, en las primeras naciones que vivimos en este continente. El sacar petróleo de nuestra madre tierra es enfermar nuestra primera madre, porque para nosotros los mayas nuestra primera madre de verdad es la madre tierra y nuestra segunda madre la biológica, porque nuestra madre biológica sobrevivió gracias a la comida de la abuela, primera madre. Entonces ellos saben, las grandes corporaciones saben que están haciendo tanto daño y que han convertido nuestro mundo en una era de cáncer, porque todo lo que ya respiramos, nos ponemos, consumimos, es todo tóxico ya. Pero enfocándonos un poquito en el petróleo, ellos saben cómo, si ellos ya han llegado a la luna, han creado teléfonos sofisticados, ¿por qué no han hecho algo por hacer mover los vehículos de otra manera? Hay otra manera. ¿Por qué no lo hacen? ¿Cuál es la razón? Y siguen invadiendo la razón, porque aquí se está llenando de tanta gente de partes del mundo, porque esa es una de las principales violaciones que hacen en diferentes países. Están robándose todas las tierras para apoderarse en mi pueblecito. Cuando yo tenía 7 años, mi papá abuelo lloraba y le decía yo que por qué lloraba mi papá abuelo, no entendía. Es que la madre tierra está enferma. No entendí mucho. Crecí y me di cuenta que allí habían llegado a sacar todo el oro y la plata que había en las minas del Rosario y en las minas de Villalinda, y había un río grande, ahí lo contaminaron todo y contaminaron las tierras y nuestras tierras ya no podían producir. Entonces, ¿saben qué hacían los grandes finqueros allá en Guatemala? En el mes de septiembre cazaban a los niños de 13 años en adelante y los metían en el camión, los llevaban a trabajar forzadamente y las madres llorando. Y lo mismo hacía el gobierno, capturaba a todos los niños de 13 años para llevarlos para hacerlos soldados. En poco tiempo cumplían su entrenamiento, ya venían como agresivos, violentos y una mentalidad totalmente cambiada. Todo lo que estaba generando todo esto en mi pueblo, mi padre me lo explicaba de niña aún todavía. Fui creciendo, fui tomando conciencia de toda una realidad de donde yo vivía y donde yo me estaba creciendo. Y creo que eso a mí me sirvió mucho. Desde los 8 años comencé a ver el dolor de mi pueblo, el sufrimiento de mi pueblo, la explotación de mi pueblo. Fue así como yo fui cambiando. Y los muchachos no tienen que vivir una infancia como la mía, que están aquí. Están viviendo la realidad aquí, que vayan donde están todos los hombres a ver la realidad. Su centro, que visiten un campo de aquí para alimentarse y perder ese miedo y decir, tengo que pasar en este mundo, pero tengo que hacer algo para cambiar parte de este mundo. Es muy doloroso para muchos. Yo tengo la dicha de andar en un carrito. Y de repente yo pongo los pies sobre la tierra y digo, ¿de dónde viene el gas y todo eso? O me pongo una pulserita de estas que me gustan. Y de dónde viene todo el metal, yo lo pongo a sacar por lo menos un arecito bonito que me gusta. Pero a costa de a veces cosas que a uno le ponen frío. Me hace más consciente de estas ganas de manchar. El mundo de uno, porque el mundo de uno. Gracias. Gracias.
All First Nation people view the extraction of oil as a violation of motherhood. We're talking about Nesha is talking about how this violation has been happening specifically in her small town, and how she questions like all these people that extract oil and they develop these technologies and they have all these ways of like this technology with phone. Why have they not come up with a better way to make cars if they know that that's toxic? Why have they not? They have, but they don't do it. So she was talking about how, as a child, her grandfather would cry, and she would ask, why are you crying? And he would say, I'm crying because our mother is sick, and for us, our first mother is Mother Earth, and our second mother is our biological mother. But I'm crying because my mother is sick, and these people came into our town, and they took all the silver that was in the mountains and the gold, and they muddied the river, they made it toxic. They would come and take all the young kids at 13 years old, marry them off, force them to go work, force them to become soldiers. And when they returned to town, they were no longer the same kids. They were changed. Their personalities were violent. They were different people. And that's the reality of her small town who suffered through this exploitation. And she herself says, I own a car. She's all, but sometimes I make conscious and I say, like, what is being sacrificed for me to have this car? What are the things that, that all the things that went into me being able to have this car? And that type of thinking that brings me consciousness just enables me to keep fighting.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Gracias. Yeah.
Pero ¿cómo es una red terrible de contaminación y de cosas que ya, ¿cómo escapamos de esto? Y del uso del carro, de todo. Entonces, como queremos, yo pienso que hay mucha gente que está consciente de que estamos haciendo terrible daño al planeta y a los seres humanos y a los animales y a los ríos, y que dentro de 50 años vamos a estar en situaciones críticas peleándonos, van a haber guerras por el agua, guerras por espacio, ¿sí? Pero ¿cómo escapamos? ¿Cómo?
What you both said, you're mentioning these problems about, extracting oil and just the devastating impacts it has on human health and the planet. And I ask this myself too, there's all these problems in the world and we ask ourselves, why is this happening? Or some people may ask, why does God allow this to happen? And my thought is, we are creating these problems for each other. Actually, you may know a bit more about this, but in the 80s, I think I learned that there was actually an electric car, but the oil industry saw that would impact their sale of gas, so they went against the electric car. So the technology for all the problems that we have do exist, but it's greed. And the greed for money, for power, that has created all these problems that we can eradicate if we change our moral values. I think you mentioned that, and develop a love ethic. It's possible to have a beautiful, peaceful earth or world and humanity, but we have to change, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Bueno, yo digo, lo peor de todo esto que yo veo es que ponen todo eso en las comunidades, donde habemos gente latina, donde habemos gente más de bajos recursos, y es donde está lleno. Si se mete uno al internet y pones de dónde están los pozos de petróleo, se ve que estamos invadidos de pozos de petróleo. Y todo esto está ocasionando cáncer, está ocasionando los derrames de sangre de la nariz, dolores de cabeza, está ocasionando hasta los animalitos, los perritos con cáncer, todo está ahí. Entonces, todo eso hace daño a nuestras comunidades. Y como dicen, ¿cómo podemos hacer para hacer eso? Yo pienso que todos juntarnos todos y poder lograr que cierren, que se vayan o que vayan y los comen donde no habemos personas o fuera de las comunidades. Pienso yo que sería algo, pero que todos quieran participar, porque donde les pagan para poder tener ahí, pues obvio que no quieren. Eso es lo que yo pienso.
So the worst of it is that these things are happening in Latino communities and low-income communities. So we see our communities, you look on the internet and you see all these oil wells, oil drilling sites in communities of color. People are having headaches, bloody noses. This thing cause cancer. Even our pets are getting cancer. And so what can we do to change that? And I think the only solution is for us to unite and put pressure on them to take these oil wells out of this area or out of our areas where we live. But we all really need to unite and do it together.
Oh. Gracias. Anybody else? ¿Alguien más? No? Okay, back to the simple thing. Consciousness. It's all it is. As long as we're conscious and we're becoming aware of it and we're self-reflecting, then that's how we're going to change stuff. And it takes time, right? Everything is about consciousness. Everything. As you're in school right now, it's all about raising your awareness. You become politically conscious, economic consciousness, spiritual consciousness, and then eventually it all becomes one, right? You become conscious of everything and aware of everything. And you begin making different choices, right? You go to bed at night, you make sure you put your phone on airplane mode and turn it off. Our brains are being rewired right now. That's what's happening. All the major individuals that created all this tech have left, saying it's an entity and it's rewiring your brains. Just look at your own kids. I will look at my daughter all the time. I have to, separate, and it's an addiction. It's releasing dopamine. What I'm saying is that we can talk about shell oil, we can talk about Indio Muerto, but it's everything. And it's us becoming a different type of human being. Right? Love, healing ourselves so we can be, alive, Our immune system. Talked about food, what we eat, what we put in. This is not belittling COVID, but I'm extremely healthy. I don't put anything in my body that is not supposed to be there, because I've been consciously awakened by that. Does that make sense? Our immune system is extremely powerful, but we've been led to believe that it's not. And how do we get all our information, right? This is a documentary I highly recommend you to watch called Hecho en Mexico. It's on Netflix. And it says most people think their beliefs are product of their own thinking. Most people think that their beliefs are the product of their own thinking, and that is not the case. Those beliefs were introduced through the use of mass media to manipulate our consciousness. Sit with that for a minute. Those beliefs were introduced through the use of mass media to manipulate our consciousness. Manufacturing consent. Can somebody let me know what they think that means? Manufacturing consent.
We think that we're making the choice to consume media or consume food, but it's being fed to us by everything that we see.
Right? Manufacturing means what? Haciendo. Okay? And consent?
Consentimiento. But for me, what it means is that through the mass media manipulation to propaganda, basically, is that we are consenting to our own domination.
Otra vez. Dice eso otra vez.
We are consenting to our own manipulation and domination. And so, unconsciously, for the masses, for the great majority of people, because they think this is the truth. Truth from the government, from the media, and they don't question it. So it's like we are happily going al matadero correos. Because there's so much power, and that's the thing is that sometimes you feel like, how can we kill this beast? It has possessed us not only in the daily things that we do, but in our mind and our body. And only through great consciousness we can probably fight this thing.
Say that last part again.
And only through consciousness, I think, being conscious of who we are, where we're coming from, and where we want to go, we can fight it because it's so powerful. It's so powerful.
You don't need, back to the beginning, is we don't need to learn anymore. We already know what's wrong, right? We talk about propaganda, right? You don't need to watch TV anymore. You don't need to have a chip put in you anymore because we carry it with us and we look on it, right? If you look at all the big pharma companies, the GMOs, the vaccine companies, they all sit on the same boards of all those media companies that have been telling us about what's happening. There's no separation. It's our time to wake up. Que no? This is what the Mayans have talked about. This is what the Lakota have talked about. This is what the Chumash have talked about. All the indigenous peoples of the world know. They call us the children. We're the little children because we don't know how to live with Mother Earth. So let us go out into the community and find out what are the stories that need to be told in order to be a collective group of human beings that are raising consciousness by virtue of our existence. I do not need to tell you not to eat certain things or do certain things. I just become it. And it is not my job to tell you don't eat at McDonald's or don't whatever it is, right? My job is to live my life in consciousness and in love. And as cliche as that says, to me, it is the most empowering thing that there is going to be a revolution of love that is going to happen. And it's when each of us can see each other as brothers and sisters or whatever gender identity we want to call as humans. That's my belief of what our ancestors lived. And I believe that is the thing that we got dehumanized with, the ability to not love each other anymore because we don't love ourselves. Again, to the goal, I'm going to give you a quick little writing assignment right now. The goal is to inspire individuals to create stories for social change that express their community's reality through symbols. That could be through writing, that could be through audio interviews, that could be through video, which generate critical consciousness, things that wake people up and empower them and the public to alter their relationships with nature and the social forces. So if you can create something that gets people connected to the community garden, that's empowering. If you can get a young kid to be like, yo, I don't want to eat these vegetables that got pesticides on it. Do you know what that's causing? Do you know what a genetically modified organism is and what that's doing to our corn? We don't know this because no one's talking about the information. Tell your story or someone else will. We already know that. What is your story? We don't cure ourselves while still making nature sicker and sicker. We don't cure ourselves while still making nature sicker and sicker. This is a cure that we all are going through together. There's another picture of Angeles Forest. I don't get that when I'm hiking up in the mountains and I just see trash everywhere. It makes no sense to me. Thoughts? What is your vision for your story? Just very simply, sit with everything we've talked about, what you heard from your friends, your colleagues that are here, your brothers, your sisters, and think about what you want to create. Just jot down some ideas. Write a message to yourself of what you want to do. Do you want to go and meet people in the community? Do you want to go and engage with people who aren't living in a home right now? Get their stories. Do you want to do something about an injustice that you see in the neighborhood? What kind of story can you tell? What kind of story can the Spirit come down to speak through you so you can help be part of a change that is happening by virtue of Mother Earth asking us? Mother Earth is asking us, help me. I'm hurt. Can you help me heal? We'll give you some time to sit with that. I don't know if we're out of time. We're okay? Yeah, so we'll go 10 minutes, let them write, and then we're pretty much done.
Good, I think people tuning in, so that's
Oh, yeah.
exciting.
Oh, okay, cool.
Nancy wanted to say hello to you too. She couldn't make it, but executive director.
Oh, Nancy.
Yeah, she's excited to come, but I think
That's all good.
yeah, but people are sharing their support online, so I can see all the comments. But
Oh, this is so cool. So we'll go about 2 more minutes. Thank you for translating. So I'm glad you're writing, you're channeling. So I want to ask the question as we leave, and it's not something that we have to answer. And what you're writing right now should become the foundation of what you want to kind of create. It can change, it can be something else, but we just had ceremony right now. We just had a ritual. It was a ritual of consciousness. So go back and reflect. And as you continue to take other classes, build. Each one should build to where we're creating this movement that we're talking about. You're asking the profound question, how can we change this? I don't have the answers, but I know collectively together, we can figure it out. There's a shift happening. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to go back to the way it was before the pandemic. I want something to change. And what better time to do it than now, right? So ask yourself, as you're driving home, as you're walking home, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I'm going to ask, before we get out of here, so I'm going to read you a quote. It's from a man named Deepak Chopra. He says that they say if you speak to somebody at the level of the mind, then you'll speak to their mind. If you speak from your heart, you will speak to their heart. But if you speak through your life, and your life is the story, then you'll change lives. Salud. That's what mythical beings do. We let our lives be the example, right? The example of what the change can be. Back to our goal, to inspire individuals to create stories for social change that express their community's reality through symbols which generate critical consciousness and empower them and the public to alter their relations with nature and social forces I keep reiterating the goal because it takes us time to learn things. And I'll leave you with the shaman in Bia from the Guarani tribe. He says that we are all distracted. Ask yourself, why are we breathing? No one wonders why we breathe. Ask yourself those questions. What are we doing on this earth? And most importantly, how can we help each other? How can we help each other? El amor sana, love heals. It's that simple. Be the example. You are love, you are light, you all are abundant and amazing. Thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. I am honored to be in your presence. I am honored to be on this road with you. I look forward to our continued journey together as we begin to change not only the climate in Los Angeles, but throughout the world. In La Quech, all our relations. Ticha onana, as they say in Africa, in Zimbabwe, we will see each other again. Aho. Thank you. But yeah, I would like to do a proper circle. Can we do that? Is that okay? Yeah.
Y no se vayan a ir sin ayudarnos a llenar unas encuestas, por favor.
¿Sabes qué? Nomás así. Y podemos seguir aquí. That's right there. And then we can go right here. We can make. Oh, sí. Sí, está bien. Más así. Cuidado. There you go. So simple. Okay. Okay. Just real simple, señora. If you want to do arms or hands or así, cualquieres. Los manos también.
Or hands?
Hands, arms, whatever you want. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Yeah. So I just again want to say I am very honored. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for sharing your hearts, your pains, your sorrows, your traumas, but most importantly for sharing your love and coming today and showing up for humanity, showing up for your ancestors, showing up for your parents, your friends, your grandchildren, your children, the people that you love. Thank you. With all deep gratitude, I thank each and every one of you, and I'm honored. If we can start from the left and everyone just share briefly how you feel and leave us with a lasting message.
¿Cómo te sentí dejar un mensaje?
Bueno, me siento muy contenta porque estoy entre hermanos y hermanas que tienen amor a la vida y a la humanidad. Y también tener el gusto de conocer a un joven maestro que ya comienza a predicar y a hacer cambios. Él es parte del cambio. Y es un gran gusto y honor tenerlo con nosotros. El mensaje que quiero dejar aquí es que todos somos hermanos y no vamos a buscar competencia. Quién sabe más, quién puede más, quién se ve mejor o quién hace el mejor show. No, eso no es. Es ir a trabajar y amar lo que queremos hacer, ese cambio, esa ansia de querer ser parte de la medicina de ese dolor y sufrimiento de la humanidad. Eso es lo que queremos alcanzar. Ser parte de esa cura, ser parte de ese consuelo, la esperanza de nuestra gente.
Yo como muchos de ustedes acá, tiene años bregando en las luchas comunitarias, en las luchas por derechos de la gente desde mi país natal, desde mis países natales, porque tengo 2 países en Centroamérica. Y algunas veces, muchas veces, me rebasa la decepción, el cansancio y hasta el cinismo de que hacemos tanto, batallamos tanto, bregamos tanto y las cosas no cambian y empeoran. Como que la humanidad está más deshumanizada, hay más matanzas. Cuando yo tenía 16 años y aprendí que otros seres humanos podían torturar a otros seres humanos, me causó un shock infinito. Nunca en mi vida había escuchado eso yo. Nunca, a mis 16 años me causó un profundo shock que otros seres humanos podían hacer ese nivel de daño. Pero lo que hemos presenciado en las últimas décadas rebasa todo eso y me duele mucho y a veces me lleno de desesperanza. Pero escuchando a Fidel hoy, no soy una persona que va mucho o que tiende mucho a la espiritualidad. Soy más una persona práctica de qué hay que hacer para combatir esta injusticia, qué podemos hacer para resolver este problema de una necesidad grande que nuestra gente tiene. Pero nunca pienso mucho en el lado espiritual de estas luchas. Y me ha complacido mucho estar en este taller y escuchar a Fidel y a mi hermana Mariana, que aunque nos conocemos de hace años, muchas veces nos perdemos en esta mole de concreto, y saber que ellos valoran ese lado, porque la lucha tiene un lado espiritual y no solamente la material y la política y la económica. Y me he sentido muy identificada y muy a gusto con las expresiones y las palabras de ellos y se los agradezco sobremanera. Tenemos que estar, todo empieza en nuestro corazón y por nosotros mismos y con nuestra conciencia. ¿Cómo vamos a ir a revolucionar el mundo si no nos revolucionamos nosotros? Si no revolucionamos nuestra conciencia, y eso lo perdemos de vista muchas veces, por lo menos yo lo pierdo de vista. Así que yo pienso que el mensaje que me llevo y que quiero dejar es que la lucha está construida sobre muchas otras luchas, porque no somos los primeros aquí que estamos luchando. Nuestros abuelos, nuestros ancestros hace 100, 200, 300, 400 años, gente de toda parte del mundo ha luchado por conquistas laborales, sociales, económicas para la mayoría de la población. Muchos han muerto, han sido perseguidos. Pero esas luchas no han sido en vano, porque nosotros, esa nueva generación de jóvenes, agarró esas luchas y esas banderas. Y así como nosotros vamos de salida, muchas de nosotras que ya estamos en los 50, en los 60, ustedes jóvenes que están acá, tomen esas banderas. Espero que algo de esto se les quede y tomen esas banderas y sigan, porque como Lupita dijo en un retrato que le hicimos, ella dijo algo tan lindo, es una frase y no la recuerdo bien, pero dice algo así como que la lucha no es
que cambiar el mundo
que cambiar el mundo
no es una locura ni una utopía, es un acto de justicia.
Es un acto de justicia y esa justicia es el horizonte que siempre nos va a mover hacia allá, y creo que las nuevas generaciones conscientes y humanas las van a seguir moviendo por ese horizonte de justicia, y esa lucha está construida sobre las luchas de mucha gente más y de todos nuestros antepasados, y tenemos que honrarlos. Así que gracias, Fidel, me ha conmovido mucho este taller. Gracias Marianita.
I just want to say that I feel at peace. I feel very happy, content. And I just want to thank everyone for being here and for sharing your stories. And yeah, thank you for being here with all of us today.
So, well, I also want to share that, I'm really grateful for everybody who showed up today. Whether you did it because you wanted to, learn about storytelling, or you wanted to heal, or as a favor to me. And for all the people who showed up even online, I have a friend who's watching from Mississippi. So we want to thank you guys for showing your love. People in Palm Springs, other people, just watching. But I'm really, really grateful because, this year it's been crazy. I think I've silently been trying to grapple with making the decision whether to leave South Central permanently. And if I get so emotional, and anybody who knows me knows how much I love this community. And so that's why I wanted to, really work on this project. Was about, preserving our stories, that even if we leave something behind for other people. But I've also, been really grateful for this workshop because, another thing that I've been doing is just learning how to like love myself, And a lot of times it's not just about the stories we tell each other, but it's the stories we tell ourselves, that internal dialogue. And so falling in love with myself is something that I've been trying to work on. And I'm really, really grateful for everybody in this space. My beautiful nephew, all the youth, the promotoras, everybody here, my partner, and all my friends watching online. And Fidel, thank you. I'm glad our paths finally crossed and that we're collaborating. And I hope that you guys will join us for the rest of the workshops and that we really make something beautiful together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, after hearing everything, all the stories people have been telling about, I feel very grateful, especially for the people around me. And especially, one person I'm really grateful for is Sandy here because I met her in high school. And through her, I was able to communicate, participate more in my community and learn way more than I did now. I went to City Hall. I went all the way to the East Coast for the first time. And that was a fun experience. Some crazy stuff, but it was fun. And I'm very grateful to her, for everything she's done. And I hope she succeeds in life. And not only to her, but everybody in this room. So I just feel very at peace. And I just want to say, like, thank you, Sandy, for everything you've done for me. And I'm glad that we come today because I haven't seen you in a while. So
I know. Thank you.
Well, I would say it's an honor to be with you guys. Really, thank you for creating a safe space. Like how you mentioned earlier, we're brothers, sisters, we're a family, and just understanding that we need to be united, be as one, and it's just feeling comfortable overall with each other. And just, I hope that we see each other soon, and wish each other the best, and for us to move forward with progress. Not go back, how you said, not before COVID, but create a new generation with us. Thank you.
I guess it just makes me happy that people feel comfortable to like share their thoughts, right? We all think about these things, but we can come together and be guided by you. So that's really great. Sandy, I see your beautiful light,
Yes.
and I hope to see it too.
Okay. Es mi primera vez en un tipo de reunión de esta índole y me llena de mucha satisfacción ver a tanta gente junta. Estaba hablando con Angélica acerca de mi pasión y mi motivación es como el cruce de culturas, aunque seamos de diferentes países, es muy similar y como todas esas historias nos unen más. Y no necesariamente nos damos cuenta de eso si no hablamos. Entonces es algo muy hermoso poder dialogar, compartir nuestras historias. Yo soy ferviente seguidora del no me gusta nada más estar ahí como, ay, ¿por qué las cosas no cambian? Ay, ¿por qué quejándome de todo? Sino de tratar de hacer algo. Así que ver, como lo mencionó Fidel, hay tantas diferentes edades, culturas aquí en este mismo cuarto y cuánto más podemos contagiar a otras personas en nuestras vidas y a veces gente que no conocemos, que con nuestras acciones los estamos guiando de cierta manera a perder el miedo, como también lo mencionó ya, atreverse y decir, bueno, ¿por qué no saludar? ¿Por qué no hablar? Y así aprendemos mucho de cada uno. Así que gracias por estar aquí también, y a todos ustedes, los siento muy cercanos a mí y ojalá y nos podamos desarrollar más unidos y juntos y bueno.
Gracias.
Gracias, Daisy, por su trabajo. Es algo muy importante. I am feeling really blessed being in this space and having the fortune to be able to create this space. So I truly feel blessed, but more than anything, I'm extremely excited. I'm excited to see, because I honestly believe that before we begin changing somebody else's stories, like Sandy said, we need to document our own stories. And it's extremely important that those notebooks that you got today, you're going to get to keep them and take them home with you.
and continue writing your story so that later maybe somebody's gonna say like, oh, I didn't know that somebody like Leticia existed that worked all through COVID. Like I didn't know that. Like I learned that because somebody wrote it down. You know, some of the things that might seem so minor to you are extremely important for everybody to know. Like Yadira said, the lady who sells tamales in the corner, like what is her story? You know, we've been super blessed, Andy and I, to interview so many people and get to learn their stories of immigration to coming here to the United States and what they went through and why they did it. So all of those stories. So I'm excited for everybody to develop and contribute their stories because that's the only way we can fight what's being imposed on us, right? So if I know my story and I know your story, then when somebody on TV tells me otherwise, I'm gonna be like, nah, that's not Will. Like I know Will. He told me his story, you know. So I feel like I'm really excited about that. Right? I'm really blessed.
I feel present. I feel grateful, and I feel loved.
Yo me siento feliz y estaba yo indecisa en venir y no venir y al último por algo estoy aquí y me voy bien agradecida y bien con mucha enseñanza que Fidel me gustó mucho su taller o lo que nos vino a enseñar y pues me voy haciendo más conciencia o eso.
Se está concientizando más.
Sí, porque en todo lo que nos puso ahí de los símbolos y de todo, nunca se pone, bueno, yo no soy muy observadora, pero parece que ahora voy a observar más todo eso. Y gracias por conocerlos a todos, un gusto y gracias Andy por invitarme, como siempre. Y Fidel, pues mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
Y también a todos, mucho gusto porque hoy vi caras nuevas y siempre me gusta ir aprendiendo y conociendo más personas. Gracias.
Bueno, gracias.
Bueno, yo me siento muy agradecida de estar aquí y me voy mucho más agradecida de haber aprendido lo que Fidel nos enseñó, ¿verdad? Y todo es en base al amor. Es base al amor el trabajo que hacemos. Es base al amor hacia los demás, pero empezando con nosotros mismos, ¿verdad? O sea, si empezamos con nosotros mismos, vamos a poder compartir ese amor y el trabajo que hacemos, lo hacemos por amor, porque amamos nuestra gente, amamos nuestra comunidad y queremos un cambio, queremos cambiar, o sea, para mí el trabajar como organizadora es tocar la vida de esas personas y cambiarlas para algo bien. Entonces, yo me siento muy bendecida por el trabajo que tengo y el poder contactarme con mucha gente. Y esto me sacude mi vida porque Fidel me está enseñando de que primero tengo que empezar conmigo. Entonces, mi plan de hacer algo es empezar conmigo, empezar con mi familia, hacer un ritual ahí en el jardín de la casa con mis hijos y mis nietos, ¿verdad? Para que les pueda yo enseñar a amar a la madre tierra, ¿verdad? Entonces, eso es lo más importante que me llevo, ¿verdad? La base que necesito hacer. Esa base en donde se puede construir algo grandioso para el beneficio de nosotros mismos, ¿verdad? Del ser humano. Y Fidel, agradezco muchísimo todas las enseñanzas y todo lo que compartiste, porque eso nos enseña, ¿verdad? De que si replicamos lo que tú haces,
no exactamente como tú haces, pero simplemente lo que nos enseñaste lo ponemos en práctica, vamos a poder educar al mundo entero. O sea, tal vez esa es una visión muy grandísima, pero que se puede lograr si trabajamos empezando con nosotros mismos. Muchas gracias, señor.
Gracias a usted. Gracias por sus palabras. We started off with breath. Hey, we're gonna connect again. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your spirit, awakening your soul. Every time we breathe in spirit. Breath is spirit. Take a deep breath in and release. 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 And take a deep breath in and release. I want you to drop your hands and take a deep breath in, raising your right hand to a fist. Breathing out, raising your left hand. Breathing in, bring them together like this. Bringing in and bringing to your heart and releasing. And opening up your hand, your left hand, and you're keeping your right fist and connect with the person next to you. Putting your fist into their hand. Putting your fists into their hand. And what we have created is strong friendship. Strong friendship. Strong friendship. As you look behind, every person is their ancestors. And when you see those people, know that they're walking on the shoulders of their ancestors. So we respect each other. Let us walk with dignity. Let us walk with respect. And most importantly, let us all walk with love. El amor sana. Gracias. Ya a comer, ¿no? Un abrazo. ¿Está bien o no? ¿Sí?
Sí, claro que sí.
Muchas gracias por tus palabras.
Gracias a ti.
Gracias a Dios.
Me has enseñado mucho.
But we're creating a community archive, and it's really important for us to actually document stories. And so if anybody is okay with it, just let me know, and I'd like to take a picture of your story to share in our community archive. But if you look super private, that's fine. I understand that. But if you're okay with me taking a picture of your baby girl, let me know, so I can share it.
Angelica, can we take a group picture too?
Yeah, group picture.
I don't know if you
Yeah, I
remember
remember.
recognizing
Yeah.
it. I was like, yeah, the first time I was over at
I appreciate it. It's a
open it up.
Yeah.
At WCLAC.
Yeah.
Through
Yo,
Feliz.
yeah, Adrian.
I was part of the
That's
the
right.
neighborhood,
That's right.
the first neighborhood council in Bronx.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your name again?
William.
William. I'm gonna tell him.
It's like,
Yeah. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. How's life?
I'm actually volunteering at KPFK with Soul Rebel Radio.
Oh, okay, beautiful.
I'm a producer and
Mucho gusto. ¿Puedo pedirte un favor?
Sí.
¿Puedes tomarme una foto
Claro
con
que sí.
usted?
Sí, cómo no.
A ver, me voy a
Así o
quitar un
así.
poquito. Así mejor, o como sea, como salga bien, un par de fotos. Necesito,
¿En eso?
sí.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Gracias Fidel.
No, ya dile gracias a usted.
Ya le dio su libreta. ¿Se toma una?
Ujú.
¿Le tomo la foto? Sí, por favor.
1, 2 y 3.
¿Con máscara o
Y
sin
de
máscara?
Oh, sin máscara.
Espérenme.
Ustedes como ven.
No, pues sí. De todas maneras, ya me va. Ya no tengo. Bueno, todavía tenemos un 5%.
1, 2 y 3. Ahí le tomo una más cerca. Ahí está. 1, 2 y 3.
Ok.
A ver.
Sandy, ¿vas a tomar?
¿Ustedes le gustan?
¿Otro?
Sí, Sandy va a tomar.